as long as I can remember, like since I learned how to write, obviously, and read, and that was quite early, before school, I've been writing. And for me, it was so much about just understanding the world, making sense of things, and also about surviving, really, because as my surroundings are idyllic, it was a quite dysfunctional family situation, and there was sexual abuse going on. I've been writing about this as well because I use this like in my work to end the violence against women and all that. So I've been open about that part of my story, and I can see now, looking back, how my own writing was where I channeled all that. Obviously, I didn't use those words as a small child. I didn't have those words.
You're listening to the MILF Podcast. This is the show where we talk about motherhood and sexuality with amazing women with fascinating stories to share on the joys of being a MILF. Now here's your host, the MILFiest MILF I know, Jennifer Tracy.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is MILF Podcast, the show where we talk about motherhood, entrepreneurship, sexuality, and everything in between. I'm Jennifer Tracy, your host. Today on the show, we have Anna Lovind. Anna lives in Sweden, and she came to me through the World Wide Web, through our mutual friend, Jules Blaine Davis, who was on the show many months back. And Anna is such a treasure. We are kindred spirits. We're both writers, and we both help other people write. It was just fascinating speaking with her and learning about her childhood and how she grew up and how story was really a safe haven for her. I had a similar experience growing up as well, and still do, actually. I feel like I still feel safety in story, all kinds of story, reading, song, TV, film. There's just something that is so soothing for me in going to story, and that's why I do the podcast too, and help other women share their stories to help other people feel less alone, right? Because it helps us feel less alone and less like a freak. But it helps me feel less like a freak. So yeah, really excited to share that interview with you guys. This month's highlighted give is Amnesty International. They are incredible. Go to amnesty.org to learn more, or you can click on the giving page on my website, milfpodcast.com. If you guys haven't yet, please take a moment. It takes about 3 minutes to fill out the survey for MILF Podcast. I'm just really trying to figure out more of what you guys want and give you more of what you need. Because this is really all about you. So it's milfpodcast.com/survey. And I would really appreciate that. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Serpent Lane, for sponsoring today's episode. Serpent Lane is an online lingerie company that provides provocative, fun, sexy, affordable, and size-inclusive lingerie. I personally own a lot of stuff from this website. It's my go-to whenever I need any kind of lingerie or pole dancing gear or lingerie for pole dancing. I love it. It's really great. They do free returns. So if you order something and you try it on and you go, oh, that's not what I thought it would be, it's a free return. So you also, because you're a MILF listener, you get an exclusive VIP discount code of MILF15. So when you go to serpentlane.com and you put all the things in your little shopping cart and you get to the end, you enter the code MILF15, you get 15% off. And that 15% does go a long way. It's shocking. I'm like, oh man, I really saved a little bundle with that. So enjoy serpentlane.com. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Anna Lovind. Enjoy. Hi, Anna.
Hey. So good
Hi
to
in
be
Sweden.
here.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for this. This is really a treasure. So you came to me through Jules.
Yeah.
Blaine
Yeah.
Davis.
Right. We've known each other, the Instagram way for a few
Yes,
years.
the Instagram way. I know. I love that. And you live in rural Sweden.
Yes. Yes.
Is that where you grew up?
It is. I live now where I grew up. And then I spent 20 years away from here.
Oh, where?
Everywhere, basically. I was traveling a lot, and I mostly lived in Stockholm.
Okay.
But also traveled the US for a bit when I was a young adult.
Yes.
across the continent in one of those old campers.
Oh, really? With your
adventure.
family?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, with my then boyfriend.
Oh, okay. Right, because you said young adult, so you were already.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun. And so
we just returned here for was it 5 years ago?
Okay. Is that boyfriend now your husband?
Nope, another one.
And growing up in Sweden, like, what was that like? It's funny. I have another friend, B. Ackerland from Sweden, and she is she's a very well-known, she calls herself a fashion activist. And
right.
She takes she and her husband are both from Sweden, and they take their children back home every summer, and I always see the pictures. It's just like the most idyllic, beautiful place. And just on your website, I was looking at all the pictures of you in the woods and in nature, and it just, oh my God, I was relaxed even just looking at the photos. So I would imagine growing up in that kind of, having a childhood like that would be pretty magical.
Yeah, in that regard, it was. And I didn't realize that until I was grown up, actually. And I sort of noticed that however far I traveled from here and however long I stayed in other places and in the city and however much I loved that, it was like I could not quite unroot myself from this landscape and from what it meant to me. And this is always coming home. The forest and the lake and the mountains and the silence and all that. It's like I tried really hard to like make myself a home elsewhere. And now sort of, okay, this is it for me. This is where I'm staying now.
You listened to your body and said, okay. Yeah. I love that.
And it feels really good, actually, just bringing my own kids back here.
Yeah. And how old are your kids?
12 and 6.
Wow.
2 girls.
Oh. And were you always, so you're a writer and a storyteller, and you help other women tell their stories, which is very similar to what I do on the other side of the world. Which is now, the world seems smaller in this way, I think, because of technology and because we can connect, you know, it's really amazing. But were you, when you grew up, like I grew up not in the forest of Sweden, but I grew up way outside in Colorado, and my house backed up to a forest until I was 9. And then we moved closer to the city. But there was no internet. There was no even cable back then. It was just, some TV shows I would watch, like the old I Love Lucy and Dick Van Dyke. But mostly I would go outside with my dog, and I was an only child, and I would just play in the woods. I mean, it was so, for me, I think back, and I feel like that's when I was birthed as a storyteller. You know what I mean? And so I would imagine, that you as well, and probably your children, have that being steeped in that kind of landscape.
Yeah, and I notice how much that's part of my language and sort of the stuff I source my writing from, even if I'm not specifically writing about the nature here or even this place. Or in my work, I'm writing in English mostly. So I'm not even writing in my native language, but still this is affecting everything that I am. And so it affects also how I write and what I write about and how I see the world. And all of it comes through in a way that I become more and more aware of. And I find that really beautiful. I can relate to what you say about like how when you're a kid and you're outside in that way that I think we were at that time. I'm not sure kids do that anymore. We're not the same way, at least. We were like running wild. Yeah. And every once in a while, like a parent would shout something about dinner.
Come in and eat. Yeah.
Wash your hands. Like hungry pack of wolf cubs.
It's a different time. I mean, my son, is 10, and he has, I mean, probably too many devices and electronics and things, but he will express that he craves more outdoor time. And it's funny, we live right in the middle of West Hollywood currently, and we're looking to actually move out of the city a little bit. We'll still be in Los Angeles, but he has expressed very much, like he said, it's too chaotic here. I need more nature. That's so fascinating to me because, he's able to listen to what his body is saying. So did you always write as a child? Like, did you always write or have like imaginary worlds, or how was your creativity active, when you were younger and then as you grew?
Yeah, as long as I can remember, like since I learned how to write, obviously, and read, and that was quite early, before school, I've been writing. And for me, it was so much about just understanding the world, making sense of things, and also about surviving, really, because as my surroundings are idyllic, it was a quite dysfunctional family situation, and there was sexual abuse going on. I've been writing about this as well because I use this like in my work to end violence against women and all that. So I've been open about that part of my story, and I can see now, looking back, how my own writing was where I channeled all that. Obviously, I didn't use those words as a small child.
Right.
I didn't have those words, but I wrote poem after poem of like animals hurting, like strangely invisible to everyone around them. And it was just, it was just that little girl expressing her anxiety about being abused and no one seeing it. And both reading and writing actually was crucial for me. I'm not sure. I don't think actually I would have survived otherwise, because that was a haven.
Yeah.
That was a safe place.
Yeah.
I mean, I could express myself and I could like release some of that pressure inside, but also having access to other people's stories, that was like an escape.
Yeah.
An instant escape. And I could really lose myself in other people's reading. I could lose myself in like Donald Duck. I was like, gone.
Yeah.
And that is like the most amazing survival tool.
Yeah. Well, and many people, I mean, myself included, I've talked about this openly on the show. I'm sober, but I started drinking alcohol at a very young age, and I was 12 and 13 when I really started going after it, and that was a way for me to numb out. I had the creative side too, but I also have, an addictive, I'm an addict. And so I think, if we can lean towards the more creative stuff, I mean, my path was my path and I wouldn't change it. I'm so grateful to be where I am now and be in recovery, but it's that pain has to go somewhere.
It has to go somewhere. I can really see that now.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, looking back, I don't think I'd use the word creativity really. That I'm not sure that was what I was doing at that point. I was just surviving and using whatever tool was available to me. Yeah. For me, it was language and writing and reading. But, with the wisdom of hindsight, I can look at what happened, like throughout my teens, and, I journal after journal, and sort of bringing that burning onto the page, and it burned a little less for a while inside. But at some point when I started my journey towards healing, then something happened with that. It became like more of an expression, not just surviving, not just like holding on to the writing for dear life. And writing became more about exploring and expressing not just the pain, but other aspects of me as well.
Yeah.
And eventually, like now, the last few years, I notice how my creativity sort of, not by intention really, but it seems to be like something that I'm giving and that is helping people.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of a cycle that is common.
Yeah.
And you use the creativity for your own healing or for your own survival. And then when your healing journey has come a little further, you can sort of begin to just explore and express, and then eventually it might actually help someone else heal.
Yeah.
And then the circle continues.
Yeah.
And looking at it like that now, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's profound how we come through these journeys, of recovering from all these different things, addiction, sexual abuse. Oh, I wanted to say, there's something on one of the blogs you just wrote. You said, patriarchal fuckery. That is now my new favorite phrase. Thank you. I'm going to use it. I will give you credit.
It sums it up neatly.
It does. It sums it up neatly. Oh my God. It's just so good. But our experiences as women, we can pass that on to other women of all ages, but just to help us, like I talk about my postpartum depression often on the show, and I talk about my addiction, and I talk about, that romantic love is my Achilles heel in life. Like I just can't quite get it right. And I get messages all the time from women that are like, thank you so much for sharing this, because now I just feel a little bit less alone in this moment, and that's really what it's about.
Huge.
It's magical. It's magical. So, but then you said as a young adult, you were touring across America in a camper. So that's interesting. Was that like your version of sort of running away, or just getting out?
Right. I think it was like 10 years from when I was 16, and I sort of escaped home until I was maybe...
Yeah.
Actually, it was when I was 22, and I found myself pregnant with a child I could not keep in a relationship that wasn't healthy. That I sort of had this... That was like a breaking point for me, where I had this... I remember this moment in the car outside of the hospital where I was going to get an abortion, and I was like... This is not going to happen again. I'm not going to be in this situation where I don't even have a choice because I don't have an education. I don't have a job. I don't have anything together. I didn't even have an actual home at that point, I think. So there was something then that happened that sort of led to, okay, I'm going back to school. I'm going to make something of this mess. And up until that point, I mean, I had a lot of fun, but I was crazy. I mean, I was out of control. I was everywhere, all over the place. And there was alcohol, and there were boyfriend after boyfriend, and there was just, constant escape.
You were looking for something.
That's and escaping something as well.
Yeah.
And just like, it was a Band-Aid, being in constant motion.
Yeah.
I was moving I'm 42, and I moved like 34 times at 34 homes in my life. And that's like part of it. I just was unable to be still, to be rooted. That's what I'm doing now. I'm sort of rerouting myself. I'm staying put now and facing what's here and allowing myself.
And so you moved back to Sweden to go to school again?
Yes. I sort of left after high school, or the equivalent. It's not the exact same system, and then at that point I decided to go to college, or I had to sort of prepare myself to even be qualified for it. But I started that journey. It took me a few years, and I ended up getting a degree in language and literature, and starting that career as an editor, and doing like splendid. Was headhunted to this amazing job, and it was in Stockholm at this point, and it was just like, doing it. I had money for the first time in my life. I was sort of
wow.
And also for the first time, it was like looking at me from the outside. I was doing it right, I was doing the adult thing right, and that was such a relief, because I'd always been the messy one, the one who couldn't get her shit together. And that point in my life, it was like, look at me, I'm doing it right. But it was just that I didn't want to live in the city. I didn't want that kind of work. I had a beautiful career ahead of me, and I didn't want it. I liked the work. I liked working with the books.
Why didn't you want it? What was not there for you? What was absent that you craved?
Well, I think in many ways I'm almost unemployable, actually, because I don't know how to conform and to just like I need to be 100% on board with a vision if I'm going to follow someone. It has happened a few times, like someone burns so brightly that I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm on board your vision and I'm going to work for it. But that wasn't the case here because it was a big business. A lot of money. More about the money than the books and the writers and the process and all that juicy stuff that I actually enjoyed. Yeah. So there came a point when I was just like, no. And since I don't have a problem, most people was like, what the fuck are you doing? You have this amazing career going on and you're just going to leave it. And that's the thing for me, like leaving has never been a problem. That was easy. Just, trying something else. So I started my own business and that hasn't been easy at all, but it's my vision, the stuff that I burn for. And sometimes I burn too bright, but...
What does that mean? Burn too bright? What does that mean?
Is that an expression in English that you burn the candle in both ends?
Yes.
It's one in Swedish.
So like you overextend yourself? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Burn out. You burn out.
That's the word. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's like a cycle. Have to be really like pay attention to it because I have those tendencies to overdoing and getting so involved in what I do.
Well, and I know for me too, it's really the challenge. The biggest challenge is being a mom,
right?
And then having my business. I mean, I actually have multiple businesses really when I think about it, but it's that's the biggest piece because when I'm with my kid, I really just want to be with my kid. But I always feel this tug of like, oh, I got to respond to that. I got to call that woman back. I didn't write up that article for that magazine that wants me. I mean, it's just, and my mind, I have to, I'm my own worst enemy, honestly. Now, when you made that decision, I'm curious, when you made the decision to leave the corporate world, I'm just calling it corporate world, but the book world of that company, had you already become a mother?
Yes, I had my first child at that point. And she was just like 2 years old or something.
Yeah. Do you think there's a connection between becoming a mother and then kind of getting in touch with that feeling of like, oh, this isn't right for me. I want to do something more.
Yeah. For me, it definitely was. It also became so obvious. I mean, I've always been like a feminist and I've always been aware of these issues. But when I became a mother, it became so very clear how different the playing field is in reality, like in the day-to-day of men and women working. And also in the creative world, like the stories of the artist and all that, the topic for my new book, where I write about like the path of the female creative and what the particular challenges are compared to our...
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So you wrote a book. Tell us the title.
It's called The Creative Doer, with the subtitle, A Brave Woman's Guide from Dreaming to Doing. And a brave woman, because that's usually what it takes, a bit of bravery.
Yeah.
Or a lot, actually. Yeah. And in it, I sort of explore how the playing field is not even though we sometimes think that we've gotten so far at this point. And also there's a way of talking about creativity and the creative process and the creative life in a way that's like universal. Like there is no difference for a female creative and a male creative, but in actuality, I mean, the principles of creativity and the like cycles of the creative process and all that is universal. But the actual stories of the artist and the path that we recognize as the creative life, that's modeled on a male. And usually it's not modeled for a female and particularly not for a mother. You know, traditionally becoming a mother was a choice to end your creative career. For sure. I mean, that was either or. And that's not true anymore. But we still face a whole range of challenges that male creatives never have to deal with, because I mean we still have very different ideas of what parenthood is for a mother and for a father, and we still don't have equal access to the institutions and the committees and the prize. Like, I did some research before writing this book, like who gets the awards, who gets the grants, who gets space in the museums, who gets the most talking time, who gets the most reviews, whose books cost more. All of it. It's like, it was so discouraging.
Wow.
Oh man, it was like 3 to 5% of the big museums, 3 to 5% of the space is women. It's on that level.
Wow. That is this staggering number.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not on a level playing field, not at all. And what I'm interested in is like just having this discussion. What does this mean? How has this colored our idea of what an artist is? Like the lone genius, like the man who goes off into his cabin in the woods for like 6 months to like produce his masterpiece. And a mother can't do that. So how do we do it if we want to write that book?
How do we do it?
We do it like in the midst of the mess, or we don't do it at all. That's like our options, basically. Yes. And I want us to talk about that so that we don't always feel like we're failing, because we can't get away like that, because we can't dive into our work for 3 months and then surface with something completed.
Yeah.
Our path is like in and out always.
Yes. Well, it's something that I have found, and I'm struggling with at this very moment, in fact, is that I started writing my first novel when my son was in preschool. I worked on it really diligently for about 4 years, and then I put it down, and I haven't really touched it for almost a year. And in that time, even through those 4 years, and certainly now, I mean, I've gotten a divorce, just a totally different person. And so I've changed, and therefore the story that I'm telling is completely different, even though it's a fiction, it's a piece of fiction. But I'm now tasked with kind of going back, and I want to basically rewrite the whole thing. And I feel both. I feel inspired and excited about the new story that I want to write. And I also feel so discouraged because I feel like, I should have a produced piece already. I should have this. And, my friends who aren't writers, who want to be supportive and are loving, are like, why don't you finish your book yet? Why can't you just publish it? Why, you've already done it. I'm like, well, but it's not ready. I don't want to show it. And I want it to be something different now because I'm different. And it's frustrating, and I struggle with it, and my ego struggles with it.
Yes.
So much.
Not being productive enough, are you?
Yeah. Not being productive enough, not making the sale, and it's like, it's so interesting that there's just this, I struggle with it daily of, I'm either a mom or I'm an artist, and I really can't be both. And I am both, but it's just, it's a daily struggle for me.
And I think it is for most women.
Yeah.
But that's, I find that so interesting. And I really appreciate you bringing this up, and also having the bravery to stick with your story and not just finish it and put it out there as it is, when you can sense that it's not actually true anymore, true to what you are and what you know now.
Yeah.
Because like, to stick, I mean, that's integrity, that's creative integrity, to be able to forego these ideas of producing.
Yeah.
The creative life is not necessarily about producing products.
Yes.
It's like the process. And that's so hard for us to even grasp, like coming from the kind of society we live in.
Yeah.
If it's not, like, if you can't capitalize on it, it doesn't exist, or it's not worth anything, at least.
Yeah.
And that's not true in the creative life. It's just like there are different sets of rules and different set of truths. Because I found that as well, because the Creative Doer was actually an online course to begin with. I started writing it 5 years ago. And I wrote it like that, like very universal, nothing specific about a woman's situation or a mother's situation, or it was just like, if you want to find time, you can, and stop with the excuses, very simplified, but that kind of language.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of life taught me, and I went deeper into it, and I realized, well, yeah, sure, but it's not true that we will have the same 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's just not. That's bullshit. That's that's coming from privilege.
Yeah.
Saying that. Like a single mother is not going to have the same 24 hours as a dude coming home to a set table.
Yeah.
It's just not. No.
It's true. Well, it's like that whole Beyonce has the same whatever. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we don't even acknowledge that, we're not going to be able to create strategies that work for us.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to start there, saying it as it is. Like, this is my starting point. These are my circumstances.
Yeah.
I cannot strive to follow in someone's footsteps when his circumstances are so different from mine.
Yes. Yes. So what do you say to someone when they come to you and they say, I want to work on this project, but I have, 5 kids and,
yes,
what's your strategy?
Well, it's a whole lot about getting real, actually. If you do have 5 kids, then how much time do you actually have available? Honestly, like, is it 30 minutes a day? Is it 30 minutes a week? And then we have to adjust that project according to that time you have available. That's just like the basic. That's the foundation. Because we get so optimistic, It's like, oh, I'm going to go for that big thing because we're so inspired by the vision. And then because it's not doable, because it's not anchored into our actual life, we fail. Like in week 2, we just head first into that wall. And then some of us don't get up. Some of us don't try again because they assume it was them failing. When really it was just that they didn't look at their lives and say, well, it doesn't matter what someone else can manage in a week or in a month or in a year. What does my life look like? Then also, of course, some tough love is often needed. I mean, if you have time for Netflix, then obviously you could make some time for writing as well, or whatever your project is. So there's that combination of having compassion for yourself. If you're a mother, my goodness, let's not do what this society tells us to do, to undervalue that work completely. It's something we're supposed to do, just on the side almost. And we're supposed to know how to do it without ever learning. And we're never supposed to complain about it because, be grateful.
Yeah.
And it's a huge undertaking. Let's start there, acknowledging that. And then let's look at your days and see if we can find some time. And usually we can. It's just that we need to zoom in on that project until it's something that can actually fit into your life. And then it might take you 3 years instead of 6 months. And that's just like we were saying before, that's painful to the ego. It's stressful for someone who wants to produce. But if you actually want to make that dream happen, then that might be the timing that is doable at this point in our life. And that will change. That's also important to remember. 10 years from now, we won't have small kids anymore. So then we can do different things.
I know. Yeah. And I've been having this new fantasy lately that my son is 18. I don't want to rush his childhood. Believe me, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm just sometimes, I was thinking about that too. And I thought one day he won't need me and he'll be out of the house or he'll be in college. And, I was having this fantasy of getting an apartment in New York and Tribeca or Chelsea and just writing and going for coffee and just, I don't know. Space. It sounded so nice. So I started looking at apartments in New York.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of yourself.
No, I'm still an addict. I go for the whole enchilada. I'm not going to just, but, I could have spent that time writing.
You could.
But, no, I love to go into fantasy, probably sometimes too much, but, But yes, I think it does change. And I have one of my really good friends, Sabrina, her kids are teenagers now. They're 17 and 15, almost. They'll be next month. And her life is so different. I mean, she doesn't need a babysitter. She doesn't,
Exactly.
they're like out in the world being young adults.
Yeah. I mean, this parenthood is still a huge job at that when the kids are teenagers and all that. But it's not like that. The physical presence is not required in the same way. You're not carrying them around or like cooking the
and
food
feeding
necessarily.
them.
It's just a huge difference. I find it like there's a big shift right now also because now this year both of my girls are in school.
Mm.
And that's also like something really is shifting. They're moving like one more step away from me and into like their own independence and their own lives. And more space available for me. For my work. If I choose to spend it on my work.
Yeah. And so you wrote this book, The Creative Doer.
Yeah.
And it just came out.
Yeah.
So, which by the way, it's so exciting. Congratulations. That's such a huge deal. Such a huge deal. And for our listeners, the links to buy the book and the links to Anna's website and all of that will be in the show notes on my website, milfpodcast.com. What's next for you? I mean, I know you just birthed this thing, so it's like you're fresh off of that.
Yes, exactly. It's like, I'm super introverted. So like creating and releasing something like this is always such a stretch, even though I've done a pretty low key launch. My idea is that this book will have a long life. Everything does not have to happen this week.
Yes.
But still it's a launch and you need to communicate, need to tell people about the book. What is it? And then it's here and it's available and this is why I wrote it and all of that,
Yeah.
There's lots of communication. So right now I feel like, oh my goodness, I want to withdraw.
Yeah.
And don't speak to anyone for like 3 months straight or something like that. And also we're like moving into winter here and winter in Sweden is a pretty dark affair, which I don't mind. It's just that I really need to slow down with it in order to enjoy it.
Yes.
So I actually appreciate like stepping into that season and I made a lot of space this fall. To actually be able to slow down after this big push that it is to give birth to a book. So it's been intense and now I just sort of want to go slow for a little bit and also just to see what happens with it, how it's received, what comes after. I want to keep it open for a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I am noticing already, because, I just these last few months that's been spent like in the production phase, not just not so much in the writing phase, but so I'm noticing like I'm already sort of turning towards getting back into the writing, getting back into the next project and just longing for that immersion.
Yeah.
And spending time with the words and that actual work, because that is what I consider my actual work. All of the other things that just happens to come along because I'm an entrepreneur. But the actual work is the writing. That's what I will be doing until my last breath, probably.
Yes.
So I long to get back into it, just the writing. When you're in the stage of writing that is really about exploring and just sort of enjoying finding the right words and stringing sentences together and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I had a teacher once that said, he was an acting teacher, but he said, have you ever painted a painting to just see what it's going to look like? And that's always stuck with me because I think there is a stage of that. I mean, I'm big into also like ultimately having an outline and like knowing where I'm going and stuff like that. But at the very beginning stages, I think it's really important to just have that sense of play and exploration and just, I always say, and I say this to my clients, like, let it be messy.
Right.
Let it be
Crappy
messy
even.
as fuck. Like, just let it be shitty. Like, write the shittiest scene you could possibly write. And there's so much freedom in that because we put pressure on ourselves, which is so unrealistic to just write a perfect first draft right out the gate. Nobody does that.
Never
Even
happened.
the most seasoned writers. I mean, I just saw a poster for the movie Goldfinch that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna Tartt took 12 years to write that book.
That's like mind-boggling.
Yeah. And it's been out several years, and now there's a movie being made of it. And it's just like these things take time, and we see the finished product and we see the movie poster and we think, oh, they just made that. It's like, no. That's been percolating for a long time.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I find is particularly challenging for women, actually, to allow yourself to play and fail and be messy in that way. Because we come at our creative work with this good girl thing going on from school,
Yes.
You follow the rules, you behave well, you do what you're told, and you get good grades in return. That's a successful way to be, actually, in the school world.
Yeah.
That's rewarded. But in the creative life, it's a disaster. You have to be able to fail. You have to find some kind of joy in the mess and
it's true.
Bring, the play back into it. I think most women grown up have forgotten how to play. Not just when it comes to writing or creative work, but in life in general, because we're so busy, worrying about how we are perceived.
Absolutely.
Being good mothers, doing our best in our careers, and being good girls, and being good daughters, and all of it is just
it's patriarchal fuckery.
That's the fuckery, right there.
It really is. Yeah, and you just bringing it back to what I was sharing about my novel, what's in the draft now that is probably never going to even make it to daylight at this point, because I'm just rewriting the whole thing, which is daunting but also exciting at the same time, is that all of that writing that I did, hundreds and hundreds of pages, was valuable, is valuable.
Yes.
Even though it's never going to see the light of day. I needed that exploration. I needed to write, and God bless my writing coach, who I just adore, Lisa Cron. I would send her just horrible scenes, and she would be so patient. She'd be like, this isn't your best, but what can we learn from this? What can we extrapolate? What are you trying to discover here?
Yeah.
And, it is
and
very
just allow it to be about discovering something, because sometimes what you're trying to write about happens at the 10th page or at the 100th page even.
Yes.
And then, so this is what I was getting at. And now I can get rid of those first 100 pages and begin the actual writing.
Yeah.
And that's painful, but that's how it is. We have to allow for it.
And I think now we're so accustomed to, more so than even when we were growing up, but this has been for, over a century, but it's much worse now, is that instant gratification of you want something delivered tomorrow, it's Amazon, or whatever. You want to order food, it'll be here in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You want to watch a movie on demand, just push the button. There's no, and the fact is, most things created from humans don't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
From the human mind, from our hearts and souls. It's on a different timeline.
Completely. And we never know, like you said before, you can make an outline for the writing or even for the whole project or for your business or whatever. But in the end, it's one step after another.
Yeah.
And we make the path as we go along. And we can't say in the beginning if it's 10 steps or if it's 1,000. It's just, we don't know.
Yeah.
And we can try to make it 10. And that's going to be very painful.
Disappointing. Exactly. Well, Anna, you are such a delight, and this has just been such an amazing conversation. I want to come visit you in Sweden.
Yes, I do.
I do. I really do. I really, it's in my heart to go there.
Yeah.
So we've come to the time where I ask 3 questions, and then I go into a lightning round of just fun questions. So the first question is, What do you think about when you hear the word MILF?
MILF. You know what? I Googled it today. I didn't know what it meant before today.
You're like, what am I getting myself into?
No, but I've listened to your podcast and I've sort of gotten an idea what the topics are, but I didn't know what the actual word meant. So
what did you think when Google popped up the answer?
I was like, oh, okay. It was something like mother, I want to
fuck.
Yes. Or another alternative was mature. Or something. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Mature or something? Okay.
And I figured, well, I could fit into that category.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, and I always say this. For me, it's both. It's moms I'd like to fuck, and moms I'd like to follow is really what that's my riff on it. And that's the subtitle of the podcast, because I've always learned everything from other moms that I've walked in their footsteps, what is something you've changed your mind about recently?
Oh, I started drinking coffee this year. I have never, I've never actually had coffee before.
Really? What made you change your mind? You just had a delicious cup and you said, oh, this is my jam.
Someone it was this person I follow on Instagram again. Made something called like a mocha latte with the tahini and chili, and it was all sorts of things in it. And it was like, I don't know what made me do it, because I don't drink coffee, but I did. And then I sort of, that was it.
So do you make it that way every day with all those things in it?
Some version of it.
Oh, wow.
But I can only have it in the morning, because I'm super sensitive to caffeine. Yes. So if I have it any later, I'll be buzzing.
Up all night. Yeah. How do you define success?
I think the way Maya Angelou described it is a good way to see it. I think she said liking what you do and how you do it. That's like the basis of everything.
I love that. Okay, lightning round of questions. Ocean or desert?
Ocean.
Favorite junk food?
Sushi count as junk food? No.
You can pick whatever you want. Because
I'm crazy about sushi. And where I live, because I live out in nowhere, we don't have sushi. So that's what I go for always when I come into civilized areas.
Movies or Broadway show?
Movies.
Daytime sex or nighttime sex?
Daytime, definitely.
Texting or talking?
Texting. I'm an introvert,
Cat person or dog person?
Well, I don't like to choose dog. I have a dog.
Okay.
And no cats, so dog.
Have you ever worn a unitard?
No. Nor am I likely to, let's put it that
way. Shower or bathtub?
Bathtub.
Ice cream or chocolate?
Chocolate.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at ping pong?
0, I'd say.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
People who eat the whole apple. Like, why are they eating, This was what came to mind.
I thought this was going into some deep metaphor. I was like, what is she?
I'm talking about the actual apple. People who eat the actual whole apple. It drives me crazy. What's wrong with them?
You mean the core?
Like
eating the core? Ew. People do that?
People do that.
I love that that's your pet peeve.
Well, that's the only... Yeah, well, let's go with that.
If you could push a button and it would make everyone in the world 7% happier, but it would also place a worldwide ban on all hairstyling products, would you push it?
Oh, well, yeah, I would, because I'm super duper lazy when it comes to my hair, so I rarely use anything. So I wouldn't be in any trouble.
Okay.
I guess other would.
Superpower choice: invisibility, ability to fly, or super strength?
Invisibility. Yeah.
Would you rather have 6 fingers on both hands or a belly button that looks like foreskin?
Ew. No.
That's your answer. No.
That's
Okay,
horrible.
good.
No
Okay,
is
good.
my answer.
Good. What was the name of your first pet?
Oh, it was a tiny little bird. I don't know, like the species in English, with this small little beautiful white bird called Fia.
Fia? Okay. And what was the name of the street you grew up on?
Smasvägen.
So your porn name is Sia Svosvagen.
Oh my goodness. And I think that's suitable because that's how bad I would fail at that profession. It's like,
I think it's a great name. It sounds beautiful to me.
exotic, if nothing else.
Very exotic. Very exotic. Anna, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're a delight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to know you.
You too.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Anna. Just a reminder to go check out serpentlane.com for all your lingerie needs and use that code MILF15 at checkout and save 15%. Join me next week for a fresh episode of MILF Podcast where I interview celebrity hairstylist Kylie Heath. Talk to you then. Bye.